Welcome to School Sleuth, seeing red over a pen. Get ready to relax, laugh, and let your imagination take over as we dive into this quirky mystery. Whether you're here for a little fun or to unwind, I'm glad you've joined me. If you happen to fall asleep, it would be an honor. Feel free to return to hear the end or listen again whenever you need a bit of laughter or relaxation. There I was, staring down the barrel of another dull Tuesday. My office, a repurposed janitor's closet in the far corner of the school, smelled faintly of bleach and bad decisions. The name on the door read, Detective Daniels, scrawled in Sharpie on a sticky note, because I didn't believe in labels or spending money on proper signage. Just as I was considering an early retirement, or maybe just an early lunch, he walked in. Mr. Harrison Clark, the kind of teacher who made kids double-check their work and adults double-check their life choices. His favorite red marking pen was practically legendary. It had graded thousands of essays, crushed countless dreams, and even survived an accidental dip in the coffee cup of 2017. But today, it was missing. Daniels, Clark said, his voice as sharp as his perfectly creased trousers. I need you to find something. I glanced at the pile of confiscated gum wrappers and whoopee cushions in my evidence drawer. You sure you've got the right detective? His expression could have withered a daisy. It's my red pen. It's gone. Stolen. Stolen? I leaned back, trying to look intrigued instead of hungry. Any suspects? That's your job. And just like that, I was in the middle of the biggest case this school had seen since someone replaced the PE teacher's whistle with a kazoo. I grabbed my trusty notepad, a relic from the stationery cupboard circa 1998, and jotted down the word pen. It didn't feel like much of a lead, but every case starts somewhere. All right, Clark, I said, giving him my best detective stare. It's somewhere between I'm taking you seriously and I'm pretending this isn't ridiculous. Tell me everything. When did you last see the pen? This morning, he said, pacing my tiny office like a caged lion. I was marking essays during homeroom. I stepped out for 5 minutes to deal with Chloe's latest drama, something about a missing lunchbox, as if I'm the lost property department, and when I got back, the pen was gone. 5 minutes, I murmured, tapping my pencil against my notepad. Plenty of time for a thief to strike. And you're sure it didn't just roll under the desk? Maybe fall into your coffee mug again? Clark stopped pacing long enough to glare at me. I'm not an idiot, Daniels. Someone took it. Someone with motive. Motive, huh? I leaned forward, my interest officially piqued. You got suspects in mind? He hesitated, then pulled a neatly folded sheet of paper from his pocket. I wrote down a list. I unfolded it, scanning the names. 4 suspects, each with a reason to want Clark's pen to disappear. Suspect 1, Miss Baker, the school's geography teacher, who'd been spending a suspicious amount of time in Clark's classroom lately. Always borrowing supplies, laughing at his bad jokes, and once even offering to bake him cookies, just because. Found near Clark's desk, a hair clip, her signature accessory. Suspect 2, Miss Harper, the music teacher, famous for her short temper and bright red lipstick. She'd accused Clark more than once of being too harsh on students, and rumor had it she wasn't above a little sabotage to prove her point. Clark said he'd noticed a faint lipstick stain on his desk earlier, one that matched Harper's signature shade. Suspect 3, Coach Miller, the PE teacher, a man of few words but plenty of grudges. Clark had bested him at the staff football match last month, and Miller hadn't let it go. Found at the scene, a silver whistle that definitely wasn't Clark's. Suspect 4, Chloe Watson, a Year 6 student with a knack for drama and a grudge as fresh as her B+ on the recent essay. She'd left behind her lunchbox, conveniently emblazoned with her name, right on Clark's desk. I set the list down and looked back at Clark. That's quite the rogues gallery. They all had motive, he said, folding his arms. An opportunity. Daniels, I need that pen back. Do whatever it takes. Don't worry, I said, grabbing my magnifying glass for dramatic effect. This case is as good as solved. In reality, it wasn't. Not even close. But hey, confidence is half the job. I started with Miss Baker, partly because she was at the top of the list, and partly because she was on yard duty, which made her an easy target. I found her near the monkey bars, keeping a watchful eye on a group of Year 4 kids determined to give their parents a heart attack. Miss Baker, I said, strolling up with all the subtlety of a marching band. Got a minute? She turned, startled, and immediately adjusted the hair clip holding back her auburn waves. It was green with little daisies, the same kind of clip I'd found at Clark's desk. Coincidence? I didn't believe in those. Detective Daniels, she said, trying to sound casual. What's this about? I'll cut to the chase, I said, flipping open my notepad. Where were you during homeroom this morning? Her eyes widened. Homeroom? I was in my classroom, of course. Why? I'm investigating the theft of Mr. Clark's red pen. You know, the one he's practically married to. Your name came up. Me? She laughed nervously. Why on earth would I take his pen? I held up the hair clip in a plastic evidence baggie. This was found near his desk. Looks familiar, doesn't it? Her hand flew to her hair. I must have dropped it when I borrowed some paper from him yesterday. I didn't take the pen, I swear. You borrowed paper, I said, raising an eyebrow. Or you borrowed his attention? Word around the staff room is you've got a soft spot for Clark. Maybe you wanted the pen as a keepsake? Her face turned the colour of a tomato that had been graded too harshly. That is absurd, she sputtered. I have no idea what happened to his pen, but I didn't take it. Ask Harper. She was complaining about Clark in the staff room just this morning. Ah, a deflection. Classic. But I wasn't letting her off the hook just yet. All right, Baker, I said, tucking my notepad away. You're free to go, but don't leave the school grounds. Next up was Miss Harper. I found her in the music room, directing a group of kids attempting to butcher hot cross buns on recorders. The scene was enough to make anyone lose their cool, but Harper looked particularly frazzled. Miss Harper, I said, stepping inside and immediately regretting it. We need to talk. Make it quick, Daniels, she snapped, waving her conductor's baton like a sword. This won't take long, I said, shouting over the racket. What's your beef with Clark? She blinked at me, clearly caught off guard. Beef? I don't have beef with him. Funny, I said, pulling out my notepad. Word is you've been griping about his marking style. Too harsh, you said. Maybe harsh enough to inspire a little revenge? That's ridiculous, she said, crossing her arms. I don't care about his marking. The only thing harsh right now is this racket. And what does this have to do with anything? This, I said, holding up the lipstick-stained tissue I'd bagged from Clark's desk. Care to explain how your signature shade ended up at the crime scene? Harper's eyes narrowed. I was in his room earlier, but only because I left my phone there yesterday. I didn't take his pen. Honestly, Daniels, you should be asking Miller. He's been jealous of Clark ever since that football game. Another deflection. I was starting to see a pattern. I found Coach Miller out on the oval, blowing his whistle like it owed him money. The Year 6 boys were running laps, looking like they'd just discovered what regret tasted like. Miller spotted me from a distance and waved me over, though his smile disappeared the moment he saw my notepad. Daniels, he said, crossing his arms like he was preparing for battle. What now? Coach, I began, strolling up and ignoring the sweat-soaked air. I need to ask you a few questions about this morning. Unless it's about how to motivate a team, I don't have time, he grunted, blowing the whistle again for good measure. Funny you mention whistles, I said, pulling a shiny silver one out of my evidence bag. Because this little beauty was found right by Clark's desk. Miller's face darkened. That's not mine. No? I tilted my head. Looks exactly like the one you're always wearing around your neck. This one's engraved, he snapped, pulling his whistle from his lanyard and showing me the tiny letters, property of Coach Miller. I've got no reason to steal a pen, Daniels, and no time for this nonsense. Sure about that? I asked, tapping my pencil on my notepad. Word is, you've been holding a grudge against Clark ever since he showed you up at the staff football match. Something about a nutmeg in front of the entire school. Miller's jaw clenched so hard I thought he might crack a molar. That was one lucky goal, and it's got nothing to do with this. Doesn't it? I leaned in, lowering my voice for dramatic effect. Maybe you saw your chance for payback. You swipe the pen, Clark gets thrown off his game, and boom, you reclaim your spot as top dog. That's ridiculous, Miller barked, blowing his whistle again, possibly just to let off steam. I didn't take his stupid pen. If you want someone with a motive, try that Chloe kid. She's been complaining about him all week. Another deflection. I jotted it down and stepped back. Thanks for your cooperation, Coach. Don't leave town. He rolled his eyes. Where would I go? Back to the gym. Finally, it was time to talk to Chloe Watson. I found her in the library, hunched over her math homework like it owed her money. The lunchbox with her name on it sat innocently on the table, a beacon of suspicion. Chloe, I said, pulling up a chair across from her. Got a minute? Her eyes flicked up at me, already annoyed. What did I do now? I'm investigating the theft of Mr. Clark's red pen, I said, keeping my tone serious. Your name's come up. She groaned, dropping her pencil. Are you kidding me? Why would I want his dumb pen? Maybe because of this, I said, tapping her lunchbox. Found right on his desk. Care to explain how it got there? I must have left it behind after I gave him my essay, she said, shrugging. It's not a crime to forget stuff. Not usually, I agreed, leaning in. But you weren't happy with that B+, were you? Rumour has it you called his marking unfair. Maybe you wanted to send a message. Chloe snorted. Yeah, because stealing a pen is really going to teach him a lesson. Look, Daniels, I didn't take it. If you want someone who hates him, check out Miss Harper. She's always whining about him. Another deflection. Another suspect with a grudge. This case was starting to feel like a jigsaw puzzle with half the pieces missing. After days of chasing down dead ends and endless suspects, I finally had it. The key to this whole mess wasn't about who took the pen, but rather who didn't take it and why. It all started with Miss Baker. She'd been in the room early, borrowing some paper from Clark's desk. When she spotted the pen, she saw it as a little piece of Clark she could keep for herself. He was always so distant, and a red pen, his favourite, felt like a tiny symbolic victory. So she took it, slipped it into her bag, and rushed out of the classroom. But as she walked back to her own room, she realized she'd made a snap decision. Taking the pen didn't change anything, and keeping it made her feel more pathetic than empowered. So, in a moment of self-doubt, she quickly dropped the pen near Clark's desk, in a hurry to get back to her own class and forget about it. But she also forgot her hair clip, a small, meaningless token, left behind as her conscience started to catch up with her. Enter Miss Harper, whose day had been filled with complaints about Clark's grading. She'd heard the rumours about how harsh he could be, and her frustration bubbled up when she found the pen sitting there on Clark's desk. When she picked it up, it wasn't for any malicious reason. It was more about her need to find something, anything, that could help her feel like she was in control. She didn't even realize Miss Baker had left it there. But when she noticed lipstick marks on the desk, she quickly tried to cover her tracks, leaving her lipstick behind as a way to make her presence there a little more obvious. She heard footsteps approaching, so she quickly dropped the pen back on the desk and bolted, leaving behind both the pen and the lipstick. Coach Miller came in next. He had been walking by, still fuming over Clark's smugness after their last football match, and had wanted to poke fun at the teacher. When he saw the pen, he thought, Why not make Clark's day just a little worse? So he grabbed the pen, but by the time he'd reached the door, he realized he was late for a meeting. In a rush, he dropped his whistle onto Clark's desk and hurried off, forgetting the pen completely as he dashed out of the room. Chloe entered the room next. Frustrated by her B+ on her assignment, she wanted to take control over something, anything. She saw the pen, but instead of taking it, she decided to hide it. It was about power, about marking her territory. She tucked the pen behind a pile of papers on Clark's desk, leaving it there, hidden from view. But in the chaos, she dropped her lunchbox with her name written on it, leaving behind the final clue. After all this, I stood in the room, staring at the cluttered desk, the pieces of the puzzle finally falling into place. The pen wasn't really stolen. It had just been misplaced, moved around by people trying to make a point, none of them realizing they weren't acting alone. I glanced over the desk once more, and there it was, the red pen, tucked behind a pile of graded papers. I picked it up, turning it over in my hands. Clark hadn't noticed it, too caught up in his own frustration. He'd probably been so focused on the idea that it had been taken from him, he never thought to check his own desk properly. "Clark," I said, holding up the pen. "It was never gone. It was just moved around." Clark blinked. "But how? It was right here?" "Yep," I said, explaining how Miss Baker had taken it first, unsure of herself, then ditched it after realizing it didn't help. Miss Harper had found it, thinking it was a clue for her to use, but left it after hearing footsteps. Coach Miller had grabbed it in a fit of jealousy, but rushed out of the room, leaving the pen behind. And finally, Chloe, in her frustration, had hidden it in a moment of pettiness, leaving behind her lunchbox as the final piece of the puzzle. "So it wasn't stolen?" Clark asked. "Nope. It was a series of missteps, people trying to make their own statement with a pen that wasn't even worth all the trouble." Clark laughed awkwardly, scratching his head. "I guess I got carried away, huh?" "You and everyone else," I said, returning the pen. "But it's over now. It's just a pen." The case was solved. The pen, a symbol of control, had been passed from hand to hand, with each person trying to make a statement, none of them realizing they were all part of the same mix-up. In the end, the pen had never really gone anywhere. It had just been a bit lost in translation. Thank you so much for making it all the way to the end of this mystery. I truly appreciate you sticking with me through every twist and turn. This is my first attempt at this style of story, so your feedback is especially valuable to me. If you enjoyed it, or even if you didn't, I'd love to hear what you think. Whether it's a thumbs up, a thumbs down, or a thought about what could be better next time, please leave a comment. Your thoughts really help me improve and bring you more of the content you enjoy. Thanks again for being part of this adventure. Good, bad, or next time, I'm so glad you were here.